Hi everyone. Welcome back to a new episode. A little bit later than we promised, but we had some fabulous technical difficulties that we will never tell you about because it was the worst thing that's ever happened. Um, I think what I'm gonna do first is introduce my co-host. Hi, Emu.
Hi.
It's been a day,
It has.
but we're here.
We made it.
Are you ready?
I am so ready.
I am so not, but we go anyway. As you guys can probably see, we have a guest. Oh, okay.
Hello,
It would have been the
guest.
preferred time for our guest to maybe
Hello,
wave.
guest.
Um,
Is that me?
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if what needed to be introduced
yeah, you
first.
maybe
I'm
should have
sorry.
waved because I was gonna do like a whole like introduction thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi.
I guess I'll just introduce you now, since this is going so fabulously well.
Yeah.
So I can't say this whole intro; it's a lot. Um, so for everyone that doesn't know, or even if you do know, um, our guest today is Marc Miller. He is a championship winning driver in Trans Am, race winner in the IMSA WeatherTech Series, Michelin Pilot Challenge, and SRO World Challenge. Um, driver coach, I don't know, man of the world. So, welcome.
Thank you. Most interesting man. Um,
Pretty much.
and it is really just to take. I'm sorry. I'm going to go ahead and start off with I'm sorry. It's my fault that this is so late, and you guys did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. It's my fault.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna just put that out there.
Okay, I'm
My
also going to
bad.
put out there that I told him earlier he didn't have to apologize for things, and I wasn't blaming him for things,
Yeah,
but
but it's
it
I don't
happened.
know how to work Discord or things.
Well, apparently none of us knew how to work Discord because this
Yeah,
is a
so
Zoom call.
Woo.
but thank you for guys for the warm welcome and everything, and I'm excited to be on the show. And it's January, it's 2024. It is January, right?
It
Okay, I haven't
Yeah.
is.
missed
It's
January.
my birthday
It's
week. My
January.
birthday is on
Con-
Yay!
Thursday.
Happy
Happy
birthday!
birthday.
Thank you.
Very very happy birthday. Yeah, it's just as I listened to you earlier and you said like it's been a day. Yeah, it's been a month so far,
Mm-hmm.
so it's been very very busy and but yeah, I'm ready to answer some questions and interact and tell you about stuff that I hope is happening. So I don't know yet.
Oh man. Okay. So, where do we want to start? I think let's just start. Oh, I have so many tabs open with so many things. Um, I think let's, start at the beginning. Um,
Well, I was born
no, no,
and
no, no,
oh, okay.
no, no, but also
Not that
kind of
far.
yes.
Okay,
Also
not
kind
that
of
far.
yes. Because I've talked about on the show how everybody kind of has like their moment when they realized they wanted to like do what they wanted to do. So,
Oh,
what was your moment when you knew that you
okay.
wanted to like be a race car driver?
So that's a question I've gotten before and I've answered before, and it's not changed since then. So I'm going to tell the same answer.
Well, you know what? I saw you post the answer to this question on your Instagram broadcast channel the other day, and I was like, oh shit.
Okay. So I got started in racing when I was 11, and I was a chubby little kid and not fat, but I was just like unmotivated is the word.
Okay.
That would be the PC term nowadays.
Hmm.
I was unmotivated. I wasn't really interested in baseball or soccer. I would play all of that stuff, but it wasn't really passionate for me. And I was sitting on my front porch, as people in Virginia did at that time. Um, and I saw a go kart trailer go by. It was getting pulled by a vehicle, but I saw a car pulling a go kart trailer. It was an open trailer, so the go kart was sitting on top, and it went down a one way street. And So like, or a dead end street um, to clarify, it was a dead end street. So I knew like I could probably chase it down. Like there was an end to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I got on my bike and I went down there and I found the person's house, and I ended up becoming really good friends with a family called the Arringtons and their grandson Willie. And you're this story, like I think I'm remembering what you're talking about because I posted something that Thay's
Uh-huh.
um, competition did, and they
Yeah.
did this. But you guys are gonna get a more in-depth thing, so that you actually
Ooh,
know about the
I love
family.
that.
But the Arringtons, honestly, were like, I would say that they started me off in racing. Between my father and the Arrington family, it was like a grandparents and their grandson Willie, and they went go-kart racing on a dirt track called Henry County Speedway, um, which was not too far from where we lived in Virginia at the time. And I lived in Virginia like growing up until I was about 15 years old. But
Mm-hmm.
at that time is where I really started to get involved in racing. And Willie and I became really good friends. He was a couple years younger than me, but I was like, "Hey, can we like drive it around the yard, up and down the street?" And he was like, "Well, no, because it's not that type of racing cart. It's not that type of go-kart. It's a racing cart. Like you have to, it's for the racetrack."
Yeah.
And it every time I get that question, like when we have a race car on display or we talk about it, it's like, "Hey, can we rip it up and down the street?" And I was like, it takes me back to when I was 11 years old and I asked that question. So I'm
Yeah.
never impatient with anyone when they ask questions about that to a racing professional would sound
Mm-hmm.
stupid. It's not
Yeah.
stupid. It's absolutely a fair question. And it just immediately takes me back to that moment that Willie was so patient with me as an 11-year-old kid, or like a 9-year-old kid. He was like such a grown-up kid at 9 years old, and I looked up to him even though he was younger than me, so it was cool. And from that point on is when we ended up like, "Hey, I want to try this," and my dad was nice enough to rent one of their old carts, which
Mm-hmm.
was like, when I say old, it's like it was as old as I was. It was old. Like, so when you go kart racing, you race a chassis, maybe the really fast guys, they'll race one for like 2 races or 1 race and they'll get a new one. And then most people will race one for like 2 or 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
This thing had been racing for like 15 years. It was old. And um it was so flexible and everything. It really wasn't very good, but it got me the experience. But the moment I drove the cart and I was out there and I was on track racing, I just got this feeling like this is all I ever want to do. So what do I have to do this forever? And that
Right.
was like my mindset as an 11-year-old kid. It's like, oh, how do I do this forever?
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of carried that mindset into like continuing to do it. Like people talk about racing as a some sort of drug, and I don't really look at it that way, but it certainly is a absolute passion. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're passionate about something, you want to do whatever you can to continue that. And I've always tried to like really analyze it, almost too much, but analyze it to be more efficient with it, because we didn't really have a lot growing up, a lot of opportunity. Like we couldn't just go out and buy a new cart and new engine and stuff. We had like a 15-year-old or 20-year-old go kart, and it wasn't ideal, but it is what it was. And but I really found the passion from it. So that's kind of how I got started in racing.
Well, cool. It's not too dissimilar in a way to kind of my own story, like
I
involving my dad and like all that stuff. So I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think like when you really dissect racing and where people get started, I think most of the time it comes down to being family. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I worked in the karting industry for many years, I mean, we were selling a family sport. I mean, it was something that you could do with your kid, your dad or your mom or anyone in your family, but it's usually a father son type of thing. But there was a lot of times over the years that it developed into a kid and mom, or kid and father and mother type of unit. And a lot of those things were really successful. A lot of those karting families were really successful at creating some sort of bond that was really long lasting. And I know it was long lasting for my father and I. It was a detriment a little bit to my mom because it was like money.
Yeah.
So, at a certain point, my mom's like, hey, where'd my money go? And my dad's like, well, we needed tires. And that did, that can kind of be troublesome over time. So,
Yeah.
but I think it definitely is a bonding experience. And, I was fortunate to be able to race go-karts and even some formula cars with my dad very, very involved. But at a certain point, if I really was passionate about it and wanted to do it as a career, he couldn't be involved.
Yeah.
And I think some of the kids growing up in open wheel and even some of the sports cars, to a certain point, they need to get to a point in their career and then in their kind of like their mental state, they grow up enough to where they go, hey,
Yeah.
you know what, mom and dad, you can't really be in charge of this anymore. Like, I have to take this on and do this. And that's when I take those drivers seriously. I usually don't when I'm negotiating with their dad or mom or something like that. It's like when the kid starts going, this is what I want, and I want to do this, and I want to negotiate, then I was like, that's okay. That's maturity level that we can start to talk about your career.
Yeah.
And until then, it really shouldn't happen.
Yeah. Dying over here. So, I don't know. I kind of
sorry, that was a long-winded answer to one
no,
question.
No, it wasn't. Like, I want all the details. I'm a very detail-oriented person. I like that stuff. It takes me 45 minutes to answer a question too, so don't feel bad.
Okay.
Yes, Emu, you can ask him that.
Right now?
If you want.
Yeah. Okay, that wheel that's behind you on the wall.
Yes.
How many buttons are on it?
Okay, funny question. First story, my son was just down here a little while ago, 17, and he was like helping me like just clean up and make sure everything was in the, like, because we use this, there's a simulator behind me that I use regularly and stuff like that, and I hang stuff up, and he's like making a joke about, oh, look, yeah, race, no big deal, race car, championship winning race car, steering wheel, no, here's my racing suit. He was making fun of me, because that's what teenagers do.
Yep.
So, but there's only 2 buttons.
Oh, thank
Actually,
goodness.
there's only one.
Oh.
There's only one. It's only a radio button, because that is from the car I raced Trans Am with in 2019. Sawbelt is a company that makes safety equipment, racing suits. It's the racing suits, a Sawbelt. This racing seat's a Sawbelt steering wheel. They make steering wheels and racing belts and a lot of safety equipment, Nomex underwear, shoes, gloves, all those things. I've been a Sawbelt athlete for many years, and they donated this steering wheel for me because I was like, I really don't like the NASCAR style big giant steering wheel that's in the Trans Am car that I'm gonna race. So they sent this to me and had it mounted, and I raced this steering wheel in my Dodge Challenger for Stevens Miller Racing in 2019 when we won the championship together. And it turns out that it took me 2.5 years to get it back. Which is even much longer. Well, okay, I'm going to tell that story. It's going to be all night. So after we won the championship, the car ended up getting sold, and it got sold to a really cool guy, Rhett Barkow from Illinois. And Rhett and I ended up coaching him, but we became friends, he and his dad, and they bought my car that won the championship, and they raced it several times in the championship series. And the steering wheel was, I said, hey, Joe Stevens, who owned the team, I was like, hey, I really would like that seat back to go on my simulator, because the seats wear out they don't wear out. They actually last a very, very long time, but because they're composite made seats, they're timed out. So you can only use them for a certain amount of time, and then you have to like retire them and put a new one in for safety. And I love the fact that they keep that going. It's the same for racing apparel and things like that. But so I was like, I want the seat to put in my simulator because I want to feel like I'm in a race car and this is a racing seat. And I kind of want that steering wheel back because Sabo gave it to me to use, and I really would like it back. It's a great memory for me. And he's like, well, tough. I sold it with the car. And I was like, crap. Okay. Well, who'd you sell it to? And he's like, well, I sold it to this guy. And then I had to call that guy. And it ended up going down and down because it just became a really long story. And I finally got in touch with them, about 6 months after this. And then it turned into be like, okay, well, hey, I really would like that steering wheel back. And they were like, I said, I'd be happy to replace it. And they were like, great. So I said, I'll send you one. And then I called them back after I called Sawbelt, and they said, oh, you know what? That steering wheel happens to be a back order, and I don't know when I'm going to get one.
Oh, no.
It took a long time. So because it took so long, I ended up coaching at many test days and tracks and stuff, and in my old car with my steering wheel, and got to drive it a few times. I was like, it feels like an old bike. It was great. But the day that showed up, I got this box from Sawbelt, and I was like, yes, and I sent it to them. I'm like, please send me my steering wheel, and they sent it to me, and I ended up like framing it because I'd always wanted to keep it. And when I raced go-karts and I won championships in go-karts, it was like a thing for my dad and I to like take the steering wheel off and keep it. And I've got like old steering wheels in the back, which is really weird to have in your basement, but I have old steering wheels in the back from like championships and things like that. So it was just one of those things. It's like one of those heritage things that you do that you pass on to yourself over the years. And I wanted to keep it going. And the really tough time it's going to be is when I like finally get an opportunity to win like a really big race or a GT3 championship or something like that, and try to convince the team to let me have that steering wheel, because those are like $35,000.
Yeah, they're fancy.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get one, so I'm just gonna like take a picture of it and then print it and put a picture behind the frame and be like, price tag $35,000. Can't afford that.
Out of my budget.
Yes, out of my budget for that memory. I don't deserve that memory. So,
listen, if I ever win the lottery and you win a championship, I'll pay the team to give you the wheel.
Thank you. They probably still wouldn't do it, strangely enough. Those things are hard to come by. Like even getting a spare wheel is really hard. So if you have like 3 or 4 GT3s sitting in the paddock, on the trailer is probably one spare wheel for those things, because they're pretty reliable. I mean, they don't take that much abuse. So if something happens with the wheel, you can interchange it and it may fix an electronic issue, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's like an abundance of the steering wheels out there. So it would be very cool to get one. On the simulator, you can buy tons of those. Like someone out there, and even in Iowa, is probably developing this really cool steering wheel for their simulator that they're probably going to replicate, and it'll be way better than wheels that like we've got up here. It'll have like 40 buttons on it, knobs, and all this stuff, and it'll be very useful. But something like that behind glass isn't very useful.
Well, it sounds like it has the optimal amount of buttons, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is like a whole thing that started when Emu and I started this podcast. She saw a Formula One wheel and was disgusted by how many buttons were on it. Made a whole big thing about it. So I created a game for her, trying with all these different wheels and how many buttons, and it was a whole thing. But this is like, she's true to her branding. Like, we're 2 years in, she's true to her branding about the wheels.
I understand, but you have to understand that the Trans Am car has no traction control, no ABS. It has none of the settings. Your drink, it's very analog, right? So a Trans Am car, you've got, if you want to drink, they've got a thing of ice water in there with a tube that runs through and it's Velcro to something, and you put it in your mouth and you drink and you put it back. But GT cars nowadays, they have traction control, they have ABS, and they have multiple levels of traction control. So there's like a couple buttons or a couple levers and brake bias adjusters, and all this stuff is electronic nowadays. Steering wheel assist, it's all, so everything is in the cockpit that you normally would never be able to change. So as a driver, you're like, part of you wants to be able to adjust things, because if things aren't going right, you need to be able to fix it. And that's what happens in F1. But nowadays, it's like, it has become so complicated that the driver's like, okay, just tell me what to do, because I don't want to have to do it myself. And when you watch F1 coverage, it's so impressive, because they don't have just an engineer sitting there. They have a team of engineers. And one engineer could be assigned to just steering, like just the left and right movement. And like, you know what? I see that his right bicep is overworking in turns 7 and 9. So I believe that if he turns this knob from 7 to 9, his right bicep will only work 20% as much. And therefore, and it's like literally that in depth to what they do. And as far as technology, you're actually getting that into the biometrics of a driver nowadays. And they're starting to check heart rate, like live in the car. Like I've gone through many studies where I've done this with a team of individuals at Michigan State University. It's been a really amazing experience. I've learned a lot about myself, but they're continually doing this in the car, live data with glucose levels, heart rate, sweat rate, hydration rate, like all of these things. They can definitively tell you when the driver's about to fail, just like they could tell you when an engine's about to fail or a gearbox is about to fail. To me, that's like super impressive, but also very intrusive in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's the technology that we've come to over the years. When I started racing, everything was analog. And now I bet it would be very hard to find any 22-year-old, wannabe professional race car driver that has ever driven a manual transmission.
I mean, yeah.
And I mean, save the manuals, folks. I mean,
okay, no, I agree with that. But also, Emu doesn't know how to drive a manual, and that bothers me. That's a point of contention in our friendship.
It's completely understandable in the world of North America, because there are countries that you can't get your driver's license without learning on a manual, because most cars in Europe are manual. Most cars in Asia are manual. America is different. North America is different. And it's just not the case. And you can pretty much get by. In fact, this past year, I was at Detroit, and at the Detroit Grand Prix, Honda loaned me a cool Type R, which is only comes in manual, very sporty, very awesome car. Enjoyed driving it. Really got an understanding of it. We were testing their Type R data acquisition, onboard data acquisition system that they had. So you could take it to track days and literally press a button. It would find the track, and you could run laps and would critique you. It was really cool.
Oh.
So to be able to, like, Type Rs are like have that kind of integrated into their system when you get it. So it's built for a certain type of enthusiast.
Right.
I pulled up to the hotel that we were staying at and stopped and got out, and valet only, because in downtown anywhere, you can't just park without glass being shattered and all of your belongings taken. So I valeted the car, and the valet came over and he goes, "Hey, do you mind pulling the car up like 40 feet? Because the guy who drives a manual doesn't show up for another 30 minutes.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem. So it's like, if you think you're getting a tip now, so I'll tip that guy on the way out. So I moved the car up, but it totally didn't shock me at all.
Yeah.
Didn't shock me at all because I get it. And that's why, like, like my son and certainly my daughter, when she's ready to drive, hopefully not anytime soon, but like when she's ready to drive, I'm going to teach them how to drive a manual because, I may have a heart attack one day and there could only be a manual in the parking lot. And it's like, you got to get me.
Oh my God,
I'm going to live.
That was your reasoning?
Yeah, well, I mean, come on, it's a good reason. Survival of the fittest, so it's got to work. It's got to work.
Oh my God.
So, long story short, I told you I could talk a lot about one question. So,
It's
two
good.
questions and we're done.
It was very informational.
Good.
Okay, I want to know. So we talked about a couple things, just a couple of like topics and like general things um, going into this. But I want to talk about driver coaching because I feel like at least maybe it's just like me being stupid making like my own assumptions, but I feel like that makes you different than any other driver because I feel like it makes you more adaptable and that's why you're so good at driving everything.
Well, I mean, I thank you. That's really nice. That's there. You'd be surprised, but if you take a majority of the GT3, GTD pro drivers out there, and you watch them on TV, streaming, whatever, on IMSA or SRO, the other half of the weekends that they're not on TV racing, they're out coaching.
Yeah.
And the reality of all motorsports, and people sometimes don't realize is, this is a sport for people with means that can do it because motorsports is very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I get asked like, well, what kind of cars do you drive? You don't drive NASCAR, right? Right? I was like, no, I don't drive NASCAR, but I drive sports cars. And I'm like, well, what's that? And I was like, well, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Mercedes, AMG, those type of things. And they're like, oh. And they immediately think that I'm paying for everything. And I was like, oh, no. No, I couldn't buy a go-kart. So it's like, but the reality is like, there's someone has to be funding all those things. Motorsports is a great, anyone can do it in a certain extent, but there's a reason why there's professionals that are professional. Mm-hmm. And it's like very much like golf. Anyone can go golf the course at the Masters. Anyone. But there's only a certain amount of people that are actually going to golf the Masters. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So It's like, I can go to Pebble Beach. I'm a horrible golfer.
Same.
I can go golf at Pebble Beach. I'm going to pay a lot of money to go golf at Pebble Beach to see what Tiger did and Payne did and all these golfers that I really don't know their names of. That's the two that I know. So,
yep.
Just because I don't really golf.
Yeah, so, I don't care about golf.
Yeah. But I know enough to know, just like a NASCAR race, you know the top drivers and those guys because they're out there, but what they're doing and they're getting paid to do it. There's a pretty small cross section of these drivers worldwide, even NASCAR and F1, that aren't bringing or being supported by someone that's funding millions and millions of dollars to support them and help them achieve those goals. On the other side of it, because there's so many amateur motorsports opportunities, I mean, you think about when you get started in sports car racing. Let's just start with sports car racing. Or you start with NASCAR and be like, I want to go NASCAR racing. Well, you got to start in short track racing. That's like street stock, late model, mini stock, all these things. And then you graduate and now you got to go to a NASCAR track. Well, now you're super late model. You're doing that. And then you get into ARCA, or every time you make that jump, you have to have more and more support, i.e. spending more and more money to get there. And it's no different. So I'm very fortunate to have had a lot of support and help and luck and opportunities. But if you go back and look at my career and most of these pro GT drivers and pro drivers of, hey, I see in 19 such and such, I won't go back that far, 2000 and something or other, you only ran 2 races. It's like, yeah, well, I didn't have any budget, so I had to like make ends meet and all this stuff. So it just comes down to that. Or I wasn't signed by a team that could run more than those races. It's just that's the reality of things. So for every team or driver that's there every year, they're every they're there every year because someone's paying for them to be there.
Right.
And I find it very fortunate that I've been able to technically be a professional driver for over 20 some years, which means that I'm making a living and supporting my family and putting a roof over my head and feeding them and paying for their school and stuff for either 1 race a year and some other stuff that I'm doing, or 20 races a year and some other stuff I'm doing. It's just the way that is, and it's no different, I think, in a lot of other sports or acting or things like that, where you may just do like, hey, I did 5 commercials this year and I bought a house,
Yeah.
and it's not much different than that. But a lot of people don't realize that the depth of professional motorsports and what actually is the driving factors behind it. I feel like I'm very fortunate, but I also work really hard at it.
Right.
And I come to think of like, what was the original question? Because I went off.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like we've gone a little bit far from what I asked, but.
So I will circle back if you give me the original question, because I had a point, but I just lost where I was going.
I asked about driver coaching, and I feel
driver coaching. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I had to, I'm telling you, there was a reason. So when you think about like all of this motorsports, because of all of the amateur and entry level sports that have come into, you need these people with experience like myself and hundreds and hundreds of other pro drivers that can guide people to do it safely, that they have had the experiences, they know the right and the wrong. And then, do you want someone when you go in there, and you like redo your entire sink and you need a plumber? Do you want your neighbor to come over because he like did it once before on his own? Or do you want someone that does it for their living and
Right.
they know, like, don't do this, do this, here's how you do it, here's why it works? Or do you want someone that said, hey, I think you should do this because I don't know? And
Yeah.
that's kind of what you've got. Or my experience level, when you get instructions, and does everyone know what HPD Emu? Do you know what HPDE is?
No clue.
Okay, so HPDE is called High Performance Driving Education. So if you do what they call a track day, let's say you just bought what's your favorite exotic car?
Oh, I think I have an answer. Wait, let me Google it.
I think I have an answer. This is going to be good.
No, this is not the time for this.
No, it definitely is the time for this. But you can keep talking while I figure it out.
Okay, so let's say you just like, I just won the lottery and I just bought a Lamborghini Huracan because they're awesome. So I just bought a Lamborghini. It sounds awesome. It's an exotic car. I'm going to take it to the track. So you take it to the track. You have a 650 horsepower, 3,000 pound, road going, huge tire missile with sequential gearbox, all these things, and you're going to take it to an HPDE. Your HPDE assigned instructor drives a Miata. 130 horsepower, manual gearbox, really light, no weight, super light, completely different driving style, completely different everything. He's your instructor. They could or could not do a great job. Not because they're not like capable. It's, do they drive Lamborghinis? Have they driven a GT car on the track in anger before to know what it feels like? Do they know anything about the car? When you get a professional driver, they've experienced that. They've experienced all of it. They race those things. They've done everything from spec Miata to open wheel to all these things, like prototype to all the way up to GT cars. You just have that sense of security where like, okay, we're going to start out doing this. Mm-hmm. And And that's just the difference. So when it comes to coaching, coaching becomes a very vital part of my existence and career and what I do. And what I'm trying to do is develop other like amateur drivers into people that are going to want to stay in motorsports, enjoy it, be safe, like like safe. Like, listen, you're a CEO of a conglomerate company like that has like 5 different divisions. You have a wife and you have beautiful children. How about we don't hurt ourselves? How about like we start? It's like the first thing is safety. It's not about passion or anything else. It's like you have the passion. I'm going to focus on your safety. I'm going to focus on developing a plan that's going to keep you engaged, intelligent, smart, all the way through your passion. And when it's all said and done, you may decide you want to go racing all the time. You may decide you want to do 5 track days a year. You may decide you want to quit because you don't, it's not for you. But you're going to be safe and you're going to learn the right things in the right order. And that's key for driver coaching more than anything, is to be able to develop that and not be a one-trick pony and not be like, well, this is all I know, so this is what you're going to learn. It's like, I want to make sure I do the research. I want to know about this person. I want to know what their motivation is. I want to know what they're trying to do, what their equipment is that they have to work with, and make a plan for them to develop a plan for success. And I think that's driver coaching is like so vital in a professional GT driver's career. Certainly when they're starting out, and then certainly when they're like don't have as many opportunities to get behind the wheel, because one, it's a great career, but you're also molding a lot of people, not young kids. I don't look at that, but people that I've built really good friendships and relationships with people I've coached. And that's important to me too, because I want people to be around. I want them to be safe. I want them to be smart. I want them to enjoy themselves more than anything, so that they keep coming back and doing it. And that's what's important to me.
So
how is this model $17,000? It's just a model.
Emu!
Sorry, I got distracted.
Okay, so Emu's picked out her dream car.
What is happening? I can't see what she's doing.
It's very easy to coach something that doesn't have a running engine.
It's the Ferrari F8 Spider. That is my favorite luxury sports car.
Okay, fair. So I know some people that have F8s, maybe a couple, and it would be very difficult to like coach someone in it, because the first thing I would tell them is like, that's awesome. I'm glad you have that car. How about we get a car that's got a roll cage and safety belts and a fire system? Because once you start to go really fast, I'm like, that car will go 200 miles per hour. So it's like, hey, I'm going to get on this track. Hey, why don't you ride with me and tell me what I'm doing wrong? It's like, how about no?
No. I don't want to die.
I'm not.
No.
So in driver coaching, we use everything from like data acquisition, video, all those things to eliminate the need to have someone sitting next to you to yelling at you through some sort of intercom system, not just for the safety of them, but the safety of the coach, but also because a lot of times those cars really, some manufacturers will make them to go on the track, but it doesn't mean when you hit something at 180 miles per hour, you're going to be like, A-okay. Like I've hit stuff at 150, 160 and walked away. In fact, gotten out of the car and tried to fix it like an idiot. Like tires gone. It's like not going to happen. But if I get it back to the pits, the guys can work on it. It's like, it's not going to happen. But I've walked away with maybe a sore neck or something. Those cars are designed to do that. So if you are, my first advice to people that are really enthusiasts that want to have these dream cars is you go to a track day and you get that experience. I'm not your coach. But afterwards, and you decide, I'd really like to explore this. It would come to me and I would say, okay, you're a Ferrari person. Okay, you're going to get a Ferrari Challenge car. And you don't have to get a new one. You can get so Ferrari Challenge has been around for so many years, 20, 30 years. You can get a 355. You can get a 360. You can get a 430. You can get a 488. right? 458, 488. Now the 296 is coming out. You're like, I know all these Ferraris, but it's, you can get a challenge car for all these generations, take it to the track. It has a roll cage fire system. It has data that's probably been in there that you can utilize. It's made for tracks. It's made for what you want to do, and it's safe. And same thing for Lamborghini and Porsche and any of them. Same thing for Mazda. Any other manufacturer, the Mazda Miata. If you want to track day your Mazda Miata and you want to drive it to and from the track, at a certain point, I say, why don't you just get a spec Miata, trailer it to the track, and now you're safe, because it really comes down to like, hey, if I'm going to coach you, I want you to be around in 2 years, and you're going to get to a point where it's not about your skill. If something breaks or someone else lays oil down on the track and you have no choice but go into that tire barrier at 90 miles per hour, do you want to be in a street car or do you want to be in a race car? And it's like, at a certain point, you get there and you're like, I'm teaching logic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, here's your choices. Never walk again, or walk again and walk to the ambulance and say, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Which would you like to do? Okay, then we're going to get this car. You know, it's like, of course, the answer is going to be, I never want to walk again. It's never that. So you always want to make sure that you're focused on the upsides.
Right.
The benefit of being a good driver coach is you can develop a lot of really good people that have a lot of talent, because driving a race car, it's not like you just put someone in there and they're like, oh my God, it's natural. A lot of people can be very, very, very good. It just may take them a long time to kind of get through it. Mm-hmm. There's some people that start at golfing as kids. You know, you hear like these Tiger Woods stories, like, I knew he was going to be a golfing champion at the age of fetus, or like 2 or whatever. And the reality is like, for every one of those, there's a million others that started at 3 and decided, ooh, a butterfly, and decided to do something different. So the reality of the story is like, everyone that you have that you coach, you have to like, well, what do they want out of this? Do they want to end up doing this? And you have to be logical and strong-willed enough to go, you're not ready. Or, I'd really love if you really wanted to go do this on a professional pro-am level or something, but you're not quite there yet. And I think to a certain extent, some drivers who are coaching are so passionate about what they want to do for themselves, they'll push people into this. It's not much of a push. Some of them are like, yeah, I want to go run the Rolex 24 hour. I want to go run Le Mans. I can pay for it. But it's not always the best path. And I always want to make sure that the people I'm with, I go back to safety, are safe and enjoying themselves and can do it, and are ready to do it. And that process takes time. And, even if I don't take one of these guys that I'm working with and we end up doing stuff, I've built an amazing long-term friendship with them and a great, association, and I've helped them meet a lot of their goals. And that's more important than getting what I selfishly want for that moment.
Yeah, of course.
But I want to go win Le Mans. So wouldn't you want to, like, I want to win the Rolex. So if you're going to find a guy that's going to help you fund it to pay for it, wouldn't you want them to be ready in the best possible?
Yeah, of course.
Like, you can, as a team, win it. Like, that's my mindset on it. But that's how important coaching is, and how in-depth it can be for every level of coaching. You've got, your little league coach up to, your professional Major League Baseball coach. And you've got, when you get into Major League Baseball, I don't know much about baseball either, even though I raced for a baseball player. But in Little League, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, you did. I was like, wait, who? Yeah. Then I remembered.
Yes. I'm pretty sure in Little League, you didn't have like a batting coach and a baseline coach. And like, you didn't have this team of coaches. and physical therapists there, like,
No, it's like
you
three
know what,
dads
little
yelling at each
Jimmy,
other.
7-year-old little Jimmy, your hammy's tight. I got to like stretch you out and you got to be prepared. And you should do cryogenic, treatments tonight when you go home and stuff. You don't do that because there's no stakes in it. It's for fun. You do it for fun. And for motorsports, it's very similar. So you take those guys that really want to take it seriously, and that's usually when I'm involved. It's the guys that really want to enjoy themselves, but they're taking it seriously. They're doing their homework. We're doing simulator testing. We're like going and testing before we get to the racetrack, and they're getting a in-depth experience of what it's like to be a pro driver at that point, and I think that's important.
So does it at any point become different for you, like the coaching side of it, when it's someone that like your teammates with, like with your Super Trofeo situation?
So Super Trofeo is Pro-Am, and it's always a little different when you're driving the car alongside someone, whereas you're not driving the car except for like, so a lot of times when you go coach someone, you do, a lot of the coaches will go out and they'll do like a baseline lap and they'll get in and they'll run 2 or 3 laps. Some drivers will run like half the day, but just to run 2 or 3 laps and you'll work on the car a little bit and you'll set a lap that you have to give them a goal to get to, and some of the really fast drivers will get there pretty quickly, and some of the other ones you work your way to it, but you don't want to set a goal as a driver coach. You also have this ego. It's like, well, what's the other coaches doing?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of lap did they run? It's like, so there you have this competition that's going on, but for me, it comes down to, it's like, I'm always putting my client and the person I'm working with absolutely first. It's like, okay, here's what I think he's going to do. So I'm going to run a little bit better than that. And then we're going to work on that. And if I have to get back in the car tomorrow, I will. And that would be, I think you've kind of like undervalued your guy if you do go out there and then it's like, oh shit, he just beat it in like 2 seconds. So you want to make sure that you're good, but you also kind of gauge what some of the other guys are doing and other pros are doing. You're like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm in that window, but I'm not overdoing it. Like, I'm not racing this car to get pole on an IMSA weekend. That's when you take a lot of chances. You take no chances, and you show them that you can run a very competitive lap without taking any chances, putting the car in danger, sliding the car, doing crazy things. And then that's what you're teaching. If you go out there and you're like setting these crazy fast test laps on old tires or new tires or old tires or whatever, and you're like, there you go. All right, sport, you get out there and you do that. What do you think that they're going to do? They're going to be thrashing. They're going to be pushing hard. They're going to be like, they're not prepared to do that yet. So you want to make sure you're doing that. So when I coach someone that it's their car in their weekend, and really I get maybe 3 or 4 laps in the car leading up into that, I go out and I set a solid lap, and then we build to it and we work on it, and then we build on that. And hopefully by the time it comes around, they get to a point where they're like, okay, well, they're there. And then you can build on that on their own data. When you're a pro-am and you're sharing it, which is your question, it's a whole different mindset, because now you're also a paid driver. Right. And you can't be, when I go out, so I race Super Trofeo this year, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, with a friend of mine from town, Paul Nemshoff. He's a good friend of mine. We've built a great relationship. I've coached him for 4 or 5 years now. And he's like, at this point, he's like, hey, I want to run Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and I want you to co-drive with me. And I was like, this is cool, because I get to co-drive with a friend. He's in my same town, which I live in Michigan, and there's not a lot of pro drivers here. So it's not like, it's not, especially West Michigan, it's not a lot of racing background. I get a chance to drive with him. When I drive the car, when I coached him, when he was running Porsches, I would set a safe lap time. When I co-drive with him, I'm driving to win. So when I go out and practice, like the first race we did was at Laguna Seca, and I made the mistake of taking it easy in the race.
Oh.
And we were running third and trying to pass for second, and was getting blocked so much. And my mindset was like, listen, I could get by this guy, like, but I'm gonna have to like tear a dive plane off. The way he's driving, like, I'm gonna lose a mirror, we're gonna damage something. And the first race of the season, $200 and some thousand car. I just didn't
you don't want to break
it
immediately. Yeah,
I didn't want to do damage to the car to get a position. But I saw the leader like literally right in front of him. Like, I could pass both these guys.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And I ended up getting taken out of the race. And the funny story about it is afterwards, I was like, here's my mindset. Here's what I didn't want to do. And Paul was like, listen, if you got to take a dive plane off to get around someone, just do it. So that's the other side of it. And some people don't even think about that. I was being thoughtful. I thought, and it ended up costing me. So from that point forward, and I recently did a thing with racer.com, which is what I think you're referring to, where I posted 51 passes in basically 9 minutes. And it was basically over 3 races, Super Trofeo, and no holds barred. I'm not waiting for anybody, and I'm going to drive by. And strangely enough, it was cleaner than when I was trying to be nice. Yeah. Because I didn't give anybody any choice. I was like, coming through. I'm here. Can't do anything about it. And once you get alongside someone, side-to-side contact doesn't really do a lot of damage. It's the, hey, I mean, I'm like, I can come through here. I could take you out. I could push you. I could be here. If you're going to block me. So I just stopped giving people choices and changed the way. I mean, obviously, if you get a chance to watch it, it's like I watch it and it startles me. Like, I'm an idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, but at that point, it's what you need to do to get by safely, because by the time you get there, that's when they realize you're there and they can't do anything about it. If you show them and you're trying to be polite and you're trying to be like, let's race, let's work together here and stuff like that, they'll just go and turn in. And
they panic.
They panic and they see it in the mirror and then they squeeze the car in. With pros, we give each other room, or you have pros that are like, they're not going to give you room. So you have to drive them differently. You have to get by them. So I learned that in a Pro-Am series a little bit more.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's kind of, it's a very, very moving target when it comes to it. And honestly, this year, every time you drive and every time you take even a little bit of a chance, part of it's luck. But I'm always to the understanding is like you make your own luck and you try to, and sometimes when you take away choices from other people, you're actually putting you both in better situation. And anytime I kind of like ask someone advice out on the track, it didn't work for either of us. So you have to drive that way sometimes.
I feel like that's where you excel. Like, I've obviously done
it's not just me,
but like
you look at all the pros and stuff. They're like, that's the thing. If you take GTD, IMSA GTD WeatherTech, and you take the finishing drivers in WeatherTech, and when you go to endurance racing, like the top 30 or 40 drivers, they're all champions. They're all karting champions, open wheel race winners, champions, GT champions. They're all amazing. And the lap time difference comes down to tiny little margins, who gets through traffic better, who's more confident, whose car is a little bit better, for that track, the BOP maybe a little bit better or whatever it is, or like, oh, this one's a little bit better for this track and whatnot. Or, I mean, for all I know, it could be like, well, this guy had one less taco last night. And he's like, it's one of those things where it comes down to that. If you come out of the pits on that last pit stop and you're 12th, no chance for a podium, because the competition is hell, if you're like 8th, no chance. because the competition is so good and so tight that it's not happening. So that's why I like about endurance racing. It gives you opportunities to strategize, to put you in the right position, to be one of those people, to have that finish. And that's really important where, and you see IndyCar racers or races that come down to like strategy, and that guy qualified 18th.
Yeah.
But if you look at their lap times and their race pace, it's just as good as everyone else. So it just comes down to that. That's how good everybody is at that level. Whereas you take any of those guys and take them to a regional event, top two, every one of them.
Yeah.
In every regional event, just no problem.
Yeah.
And that's just how professional motorsports is. That's why I love GT3 racing at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I go race something else, I'm immediately right up at the front. And I feel that way. I feel real confident. I'm like, and if I'm not, got to figure out why. And I take a serious effort to do that. All of those top guys are doing the same thing. So I appreciate you like the compliment, but it's so very similar across the board that sometimes it just comes down to a half a second in a pit stop could mean the difference between
of course,
this guy's on the podium and this guy is faster but finishing sixth. And it's just a struggle sometimes. Frozen.
I think Kyra froze. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I feel like being from Minnesota, I would be way too nice, and I would let everyone in and be like, "I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me.
It's
Sorry."
the Midwestern thing.
I don't even honk when people
Midwestern
cut
thing.
me off. Like, I can't. I feel so bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you would struggle.
Yeah.
You go from like the lead all the way back. Just like, oh, excuse me. I'm
Don't worry.
sorry.
No,
all
I'll
right.
take 30th. That's fine. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, that's right. As long as everyone's safe, gets home okay.
Exactly.
That's okay.
Oh, Kyra might be back.
Yeah. Kyra's back.
Yeah.
my internet died for a second.
Oh, well, you made it back. What's the next question?
I feel like, where even were we?
I don't know. We talked about me being too Minnesota nice to be a racer, so.
Yeah, sometimes if you're too nice, you end up, you give someone too much room, and it's not just that one person behind you that goes by. It's like two or three more people because they're not being nice. They just
Right.
root you out, and it's also like just being forward thinking enough to know where you're strong and where you're not strong. So let's say you can be driving and see someone, okay, well they're definitely like, you've got people talking to you. It's like, okay, 2/10, 3/10 a lap, 3/10 a lap. You have a 5-second gap. Now it's a 4.5-second gap. It's like, okay, so they're clearly catching me. But once they arrive to you, you should know where they're better and where they're not better. And you should know where you can protect and where you don't have to. So you're not compromising your lap time too much. And sometimes, and I've had other people do this to me, I've done it to other people, choose one-on-one, someone's going to come out the victor, right?
Yeah.
But if you're in the lead situation and you back that guy behind you up to two more people, now it's a bar fight.
Yeah.
So as soon as someone starts swinging and they are distracted, now you can focus 100% on you and create yourself another gap. And I've seen that happen. I've had it happen to me. And it's just the way it is. And you can see drivers that know that and can do that and are good at it, and drivers that will, like, under pressure make mistakes. And in the paddock, I think people know, like, hey, that guy can handle pressure and that guy struggles under pressure. And but the fans don't always see it so much, and not everyone sees it, but every driver will go like, okay, who's in the car ahead of me? They're catching him. Okay. Oh, it's this person. Okay, I know what to do. Like every driver, they figured out if you race each other enough. And part of that is really cool. And another thing I like about endurance racing is sometimes you're racing against half the field you never seen before because they're a European champion or from Asia or whatever, and you don't know anything about them, and then it gets creative because I don't know anything about this driver. I don't know how they drive. I don't know how they attack, and so you have to be pretty on it. Like if you're not relaxed enough to handle everything you have going on as it's going on already, and you can't handle any more new information, guess what? You're getting passed. It's just you're getting passed. It's just the way it is. So if you're physically exhausted, if you're tired, if you're dehydrated and everything, and you can't keep 100% focus, you're not winning this race, bro. That's just the way it is. It's just how it is. And that's what I love so much about the competitive. I love those hot, really, really hot, take all of the energy out of you, becomes from physical to mental type of races to where you can outlast someone, outsmart them, and outdo them. And I take pride in like passing people when they're just done. And it's like, I've worn you down so much over 45 minutes and now you just can't stop it. And I was like, love that. At the same time, I hate when someone does that to me because that's like the most, actually that I can deal with that a little more than just like someone arriving and passing. It's like, someone's got to do something about this VOP. That car's 5 miles per hour faster than anyone down the straightaway. It's like, everyone has an excuse, but the reality is like, I like that type of challenge more than anything. And I think what most people will, I get a lot of the guys I coach and a lot of the people I know, a lot of my friends are what they say car people. They like to do the car shows and they know how to spec their car out and they appreciate all the fine, like, oh, this one had this and this detail done to it and they got this spec and this aftermarket thing and all these things. I am the opposite. I'm not really a car person. I'm a competitor. Like, I could care less. I appreciate it. I like that you have passion for it, but how's that going to help me win?
Yeah.
And I'm not a collector as much, and I like to do stuff. For me, anything that I have that I, projects that I've done are done because I want to have time doing something that I enjoy with my hands, and like I can do projects or I can share with my family and like do stuff with my kids and those type of things. That's the memory that I get. But as far as cars that I drive, it's like, oh yeah, it's cool. Well, what did you do with your turbos and this and that? And I'm like, I don't know, they're stock. I did this and this, and I was like, because this is what I wanted. But really, I just wanted to be able to pass people off the line at a stoplight. I'm not trying to do a drag strip drive. I'm not trying to take it to a track day. I just I don't want some pickup truck cutting me off when I know is about to cut me off after a stoplight. That's all. That's all I cared about. So, 100 extra horsepower. And then as soon as I'm defending that cutoff, I'm trying to get 25 miles to the gallon. It's just, I'm not that type of person where I'm like, I'm trying to beat up my street cars. But
of course.
I do have the opportunity, thankfully, to drive a lot of cool race cars at cool racetracks. And I don't feel the need to always be doing that.
Well,
although everyone I know that rides with me thinks I do. So.
I feel like you did a lot of driving cool race cars at cool racetracks in 2023. I feel like I saw you everywhere doing everything.
I felt like I was, but it was a full season this year. To take it from there, like I did Super Trofeo with Paul, Lamborghini North America, and then at the end of the year they do the Lamborghini series does a World Finals, and we went to Italy and raced the World Finals, which is a really cool experience. I did driver coaching for the Ferrari Seattle team, Scuderia 1999, and they're a great group of guys, all based in Seattle, with MG1 Motorsports, which is based out of Reno, that did all the cars. And we traveled all over, and we did a lot of cool things. I was able to drive the 488 Challenge cars quite a bit, but it was really, I was there for developing the coaching and stuff like that. And then from there, I built a lot of good friendships, long-lasting friendships from that. But I also had an opportunity to race with a team that I've been with for 12 years. That was CJ Wilson Racing, turned into Gradient Racing, and I've raced at Acura NSX GT3 since 2018 with that team. Had the opportunity to race with Catherine Legg and Sheena Monk in WeatherTech GTD. We had great opportunities. I think we finished fourth at Daytona, fifth at Watkins Glen. Probably should have finished in the top 5 at every long endurance race. We had mechanical I got hit by a Porsche at Sebring, which was not fun. And that kind of took us out of contention. And we had an issue at Watkins Glen with a mechanical, but we were in line to like top 5 in every one of those long races, which is a great experience. That is one of those. I love the GTD category, so I was excited to do that. And then a new opportunity like just came about over probably 8 months of talking about it. Put together, they launched at the Detroit Grand Prix in the Michelin Pilot Challenge Series in the GS category, which is a GT4 class car, in an AMG GT4. Was Thay's competition, and they're a Detroit-based team. And the reason I really was so passionate about running with them was because from Michigan, not many race teams, if many, from IMSA are based out of and developed from Michigan. I felt a really close tie-in with them. I love their management, their group, and the ownership has been very gracious. And even though like I try to push and things could move along a little bit faster, it hasn't gone that way. But we came out of the block swinging at the Detroit Grand Prix and was on the podium in our first race together with Michael DeMeo and I. Really, really cool experience because, that's a really tough series as well. A lot of very fast drivers. A lot of GT3 drivers are also racing that. So a lot of double duty going on. And we had a great result. And we took that into Motorsport, and honestly should have ended up second at Motorsport. I ran the car out of gas with like a quarter of a lap to go, and we ended up 4th. So crossed the line, but we lost 2 spots at the line. So, but in 2 races in the year that we just did last minute, chances for podiums or wins right away, and that type of thing. So we're working hard, carrying into this year at doing something to continue to develop that. I'm working with them. They have a GSX program that they're working on, which is in the IMSA VP Challenge Series. So I'll be at Daytona next week or this week. Oh, that's coming up fast in a few days. So to work with them, and we're hoping to put the GS car back on track again for the season. I'm rejoining Paul. I'm just going to roll into 2024 if you don't mind, because we're doing it.
Because that was my next question. Tell me all the
happening.
things.
So 2024, I'm also going to rejoin Paul Nimshoff with Flying Lizard Motorsports, which Flying Lizard has a long history. It's really cool to be out as a driver to say, God, I've raced with Flying Lizard, because fans from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s and stuff, they're like, Flying Lizard's cool. And it is. It's a great organization. We get to race Super Trofeo again, and hoping to do most of the races. I know there's some scheduling conflicts. And then I have something that I can't really announce that I'm really excited about, but I can't really announce it. But if you follow my Instagram and Facebook page and all that stuff, but
like dangling the carrot. I hate that. That's what I hate about this business. I want to know everything.
I know. But what I can say is it makes loud noises. It has sequential gearboxes.
That's like everything.
And it's really, really cool. And I'm really excited about it. I will tease the fact that the people that do know me, I will be reunited with a former teammate that I really love, and we have a great relationship, and we're going to do something that we haven't done together, but in a different brand than we worked with together. That's all I can really say.
Chariot racing.
So annoyed. I'm so annoyed at you right now.
Until it comes out, but I'm really excited. I can tell you this, like my family, wife, we sat down and talked about it. We're like, you have to do this. like, you have to do this. And it was the first thing that came up, and it was the first thing that we can actually solidify, but I can't talk about it yet. And I'm like, I'm really kind of looking forward to it and getting, like, rejoining my buddy that I wish I could tell you, like, you could probably figure it out who it was, because
That's what
I've
I'm
had
trying to
some
do. In my head, I'm trying to think if I can figure it out.
But it's a really cool experience. I think it'll be a really fun announcement, and there'll be a lot of fun things that we can do through the course of the year, and it'll be new for both of us, which is, as a pro driver who's been racing for 20 plus years, there's not a lot of new. Like, you don't just like, oh, this is brand new. But there'll be several things that happen that'll be a new environment for us, which is like a little clue, but I'm not going to say it. So that's all I got to say about that.
New environment. I'm trying to like pick up, like, are there like spoiler words, like hints in there? Like, are we doing mountain racing? Is that even a thing?
It is a thing. I think Pikes Peak and all that stuff, but I wouldn't do that.
You afraid of mountains?
I'm afraid of falling off cliffs.
Oh, that's fair. That is very fair. I hope that doesn't happen.
I would never want that to happen to anyone. So, and it has happened, but I would never want it. Never want it to happen to anyone.
That sounds horrifying.
Okay.
Just making a note.
I'm still very hungry.
I was making a note for later. You're still totally like, I'm annoyed at you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've had to tell this to a lot of people, but tell the team. So there's always this thing. It's like everything has to roll out in the order that it needs to roll out. And
no, I know, and I work in this business. I know how it works.
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone understands.
That doesn't make it not be annoying.
But it also, yes, I agree. It's annoying for me to not be able to share it because I'm really excited about it. So I certainly want to share it, but it would be nicer if I could like tell everybody, but I can't, and it's kind of lame. But at the same time, I understand as well.
It leads to excitement, though. Like it adds.
It does.
To the, I don't know what's happening, but I can't wait to find out.
I hope that. Thank you, because that's exactly what the goal, to have that happen. But as a journalist, you can see Kyra. She's like,
yeah,
you can see in her face that she's like, I don't care. Like,
give me the information.
You're on my podcast, and you should.
Well, now I'm just not going to be excited about it when it comes out.
No, I don't think so.
Anti-excitement. Well, I'll be excited.
You know what? I still am. So. So, do we have one more question?
Well, kind of, but it's like 6 because I wanted to do something that I didn't get to do last time because I didn't have, with my previous guest, the time to plan things because it all happened very quickly, and this was an interview that did not happen very quickly, so I had time to think about these things. I thought it would be fun to fire off some quick fire, kind of like random questions.
Okay. Ready, set, go.
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
That is like, give me a second. And I know Emu has some too, so she could start.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Emu.
What's your favorite color?
This is tough. I think silver.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Is that even a color? Yes. I used to say clear because I didn't really have a color, and I was like, anything that's
definitely a color, but no one ever says
anything that's under clear is pretty cool. So it's like, but
silver's a good option. No, it's a good one. Okay, next question.
I like silver.
Next question. If you could turn your car while you're racing into a boat and then do a lap on water, or turn it into a plane and do a lap in the air, which would you choose?
Probably a plane.
That's a really good question.
That is a good question because I've always been afraid of heights, and I as a kid I wanted to be a pilot until I flew for the first time and realized like, oh, I don't like this. And I fly a lot, but I'm uncomfortable flying. Yeah. Unless I'm sitting next to someone that's way more uncomfortable than me, then I'm like, I'm okay. Because you're a mess. But I'm normally that person, so
You just need to find an emotional support flyer to go with you every time.
So, but I would probably still choose flying because for me, it's more. I would be more of a challenge. My teammate Paul in Super Trofeo, he and his father were world offshore powerboat champions, world champions, and
Oh wow.
so part of me is like, oh, that'd be fun to do that, but then he'd want to drive, so I'd rather fly. So I choose fly.
Okay, good answer. Good answer. Kyra, next question.
Okay. If you could resurrect any racetrack in the world, what would it be?
Oh, good question. Okay, Riverside, California,
Okay.
because that's a track that I saw old footage of, and I actually know people who have driven that track, and they said like, wish it was still there. So I'm kind of endeared to when I started into racing and I watched old footage of when I was watching NASCAR and I watched some of my favorite drivers of the time. I really liked Jeff Bodine, and I liked all of the Hendrick drivers. Tim Richmond, I was a big fan of Tim Richmond. I just liked their style. I liked how they did things. When I did meet them at Martinsville, they were like super super nice. And so when I see that and I knew that they raced there, but the track no longer exists, I was really bummed out. I was like, I'll never get a chance to ever drive Riverside. Yeah. And I've driven a lot of tracks in California, but Riverside's no longer there. So I would say Riverside would be one of them.
Okay. Good answer. Ooh, I have a couple good ones. Okay, this is a fun one. Emu and I talk about this just within ourselves all the time when we argue about it, but controversial food opinion. Go. What do you like or what do you not like that other people do or don't like? Like if you said, I don't like this, well, someone would be like, oh my God, why?
Okay, so I'm friends and competitors, but I'm friends with some racers that are vegan, and like I'm not a vegan, so I don't want to be a vegan. I like sushi.
No, that's not what I meant.
Like, what do you mean controversial? Are you talking about food?
Like, I hate cheesecake, but everybody's like, oh
she hates cheesecake. I love cheesecake.
But I don't like cheesecake either, and it's true. I've never been a cheesecake fan. So okay, so here's one. Let's roll back to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
I don't like pumpkin pie.
Oh.
What?
I've never liked pumpkin pie.
Why?
Interesting.
And another thing, my kids, just about all my family loves rhubarb pie. I don't
like rhubarb.
Oh, I love strawberry
that is the
rhubarb
most
pie.
Disgusting thing.
No, it's so gross. It's so sour. It's so gross.
So
that's
it's
why
a
you
weed.
do strawberry rhubarb pie.
Well, listen. How about you just have strawberry pie then? If you have
That's
to mix it with something,
because you add the tartness of the rhubarb.
To not taste. There's other things that are tart that you can eat.
True.
That would not be
but
like
why
weeds.
wouldn't you take the opportunity to eat dessert celery?
So my question
is,
it
like dessert.
Do you want to just turn this into a series of arguments, or you want to like?
We want to have a series of arguments. That's how we deal with
here's what I have learned. No one on this planet will make me like rhubarb ever. And I accept that, and everyone else should too. And I don't think I know friends that are you've like, hey, listen, I love sushi. I'll take you out to sushi. And they're like, I don't eat raw fish. I'm like, have you tried it? It's like, well, yeah, I've tried it and I don't like it. It's like, okay, fair enough. Have you not tried it? Well, no, I haven't tried it. Well, like, let you experience it. Like, if I give you this opportunity, you're willing to do it. And there's something that I don't really feel comfortable with, but I haven't tried it yet. I'll do it. I'll try it. And that's the whole deal. Rhubarb I've tried. All my family love it. I hate it. I'm out. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay, I accept that one. I really thought you were going to say something like you hate raisins, and I was going to be like, what? Because that
raisins?
one would, yeah. Like, I thought it was going to be something crazy. Like rhubarb, I can understand.
So it's weird. Like, there's some things that you can like and not like at the same time. Like tomatoes, I don't really eat just tomatoes, but if you put them on a sandwich or a burger, great. And raisins in Raisin Bran is great, but I'm not just going to eat raisins out of the box because
exactly my idea.
Because it's not my thing.
Only Raisin Bran. That's it.
It's like old dried up prunes. It's like, okay, it's great for people, but
No,
you better
see,
give me some substance. But at the same time, like I'll eat the heck out of a steak just with my hand, like a candy bar. Some people will never do that. So it's you have to like go with the flow there.
what?
Just respect other people's boundaries, I guess.
Boundary. That's just a really weird thing to
As
do.
long as you're willing to try it, I won't.
I have pulled up to a stoplight. This was a long time ago. I've pulled up to a stoplight and looked over and seen an older lady with a full block of cheese eating it like a candy bar. So from that point on, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. You know what?
I'm not gonna roll down the window and say, "Hey, old lady, what are you doing? You're crazy!" Like, you want to eat a whole block of cheese? Eat a whole block of cheese.
No, that's icon behavior. I love cheese. I would do that.
Cheese in the car, whole block. Give it to me. Yeah. I'm ready.
100%.
Exactly.
Okay, I think for this section, because I suspect that you didn't do your part of this that I asked for in an email, so we'll end on this.
I've messed up again, and I'm sorry.
Fine, we're going with it. It's kind of a two-parter.
Okay.
What is your favorite song, and what do you think is the greatest song ever released? They can be different.
Oh man, not really. So I talked about not being a car guy.
Yes.
I'm not really a music guy, but
that's not a thing.
But every time Africa by Toto comes on,
see, now you're speaking my language.
It's my jam. So I can't stop. It's literally I can't not listen to it. I get emotional, and I don't know.
You see this? This is a Toto single. This is something they never released in America. It went #1 for them, and they only released it in everywhere else because the record company was mad at them. It took me 3 weeks to get this from Europe, but I had to because it's the best song.
I see. I don't know.
And this
like
is
watching that. This is how I know that I'm not really a music person. I know Toto, but I could not sing that. I don't recognize that song based on the title. That's just not how I am.
I mean, a lot of people ask me my favorite songs, and
that's it.
I never say, I'll never pick like a band's most popular song. Like Africa is iconic, but Stop Loving You is the best Toto song.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. You've got a Toto song you like.
It's that type of thing.
I also like Beastie Boys too, but I haven't listened to a Beastie Boys song in like several years.
I forget about Beastie Boys.
Yeah, I wouldn't. They're awesome. Eminem.
Emu, you want to hit
Detroit,
us with some K-pop?
No.
I'm gonna pretend I didn't just see you do that.
Detroit. They just beat the Rams.
My God!
Now is a good time to be a Michigan-based fan. I was rooting for that
to happen so badly. I wanted the Rams to go away because they're in the Seahawks division, and I don't fuck with that. I can't root for someone in my own division.
Fair enough.
But it's a great story.
Yeah.
It's been a really long time, so you love to see it for the fan base.
Absolutely. Amazing. They need it.
Totally.
Because we're getting dumped on with a blizzard, and we need all the good news we can get.
See, I'm super mad because everywhere else is getting snow. It's been cold as shit here, but we ain't got no snow. It's just cold. And it's very unfair.
Well, I got
You can travel.
I love the snow. It's my favorite.
Canada's got snow. Indiana's got snow.
Actually, literally everywhere has snow except for me. And I'm like, what the hell?
You got to go up in the elevation.
I am up in the elevation. I
live in go farther from the sea.
For God's sake.
The sea is making it too.
I don't live next to the sea. I live next to water. Adjacent.
Well, but the state is next to the sea, which keeps it more.
There is a whole lot of land between me and the Pacific Ocean.
It's fine.
Emu, what's your favorite song? You get to answer it too, because we both answered it.
I think instead I'm going to end with an actual ending question, and that is, what are your thoughts
on God, I forgot. God damn
racing?
It. God damn it,
Did you say submarine racing?
A Prius racing. I drive a Prius. And
Okay.
I have this thing where I think it would be
And
really fun.
are you not an Uber driver?
Is that a thing?
Yes.
Are you a Lyft driver?
No, I don't know. I don't like
Okay, so you
strangers.
drive a Prius because you like the Prius. So
Well, actually, it was given to me by my grandfather, but
my son and I, he always he was like, I always make fun of Priuses and minivans and stuff because it's not because of the car, it's just because of the driver. This is controversial, but it's like the driver of the car is like
We're
doing
already
things.
too deep for you to not say it.
The driver of the car is doing things. It's like, oh my god, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And it's, but then I've ridden in a Prius. I had an Uber, and it was like, this is a nice car, and it gets like a lot of miles to the gallon, which is nice. I respect that. But as far as if you really want to know about racing, because I understand that, talking to you don't have you don't like follow all the racing series.
No. I brought her into this world. She was not in this.
You need to look at Super GT racing in Japan. They actually have Prius race cars, so you're welcome.
Oh, I am.
I almost texted her about this the other day, and then I didn't.
Love you. Love you too. Bye. So. My son's leaving. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say goodbye.
Oh, bye, son.
Goodbye. Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
But yes, Prius Super GT. They have a category. It doesn't look like the Prius you drive, but it's it makes Priuses pretty cool. So
yeah, woo!
Yeah, I specifically didn't tell her about that when I saw it the other day. I figured you would do this to me.
Prius racing for the win. I already know I'm gonna drag race my Prius once Kyra comes to visit me. So that's all that matters.
We have a whole plan.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it. You'll get to and from the stoplight, from one stoplight to another in not so record-setting time.
No, and then when we decide that we want to do other racing, I'm going to call you and force you to help me. You're going to driver coach the crap out of me.
Okay. That's what I do. So that's my job.
Yay.
Just not in a Prius unless it's got a roll cage.
Jesus Christ, no.
I'm sure we could get one on there.
Between you and me, we can source a car.
I'm sure.
I don't know. I'd be okay with putting a roll cage on my Prius.
Well, you're going to need it for drag racing anyway.
Yeah, it's fine.
When you realize what I have planned for you.
Okay.
You need a roll cage if you're going to go faster than $9.99 in the quarter, okay?
Okay. Well, I think we should let Mark go eat.
Yes.
I'm on a fasting type of diet, so I haven't eaten since yesterday.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So what are your wrap up things? I don't know them, Kyra.
Oh, well, I always ask you, Emu, for thoughts and feelings. Mm-hmm. So, thoughts and feelings.
My thoughts and feelings are, honestly, this was very informational. I do have, honestly, so many more questions. I think it's really cool to listen from a driver's perspective, because normally I get, the journalist perspective or whatever else Kyra gives me. But from a professional driver themselves, it was very cool and very informational, and I thank you for coming on.
Good. That was the goal.
We'll have to do a part 2 at some point.
Okay. It took like a year and a half to do this, so.
Okay.
We'll see you in 2028.
2020. Okay.
Wear the hat of responsibility for that one too.
Yeah, I know. It's just like,
I know.
It's like
the busiest person
I either don't have anything to talk about, or I'm so busy doing stuff that I don't have time to talk about it.
Yep.
So.
Very fair.
Also, I find that first point to be completely BS. You always have something to talk about.
I find times to be verbose about things. Yes. Doesn't take much to get a big answer.
Well, see, no, I'm the exact same way.
So.
That's why this podcast.
But I appreciate you guys taking the time to invite me, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
It was very cool.
Well, I had fun too. I was very scared because I thought you were going to say no to coming on the show.
Oh.
So I'm very terrified. I'm very terrified to ask anyone to be on our show because,
Yeah. It's a scary place.
Yeah. so scary. So I'm glad I was able to like give feedback and actually like as far as like information and teach people and um that's always like a major goal for me when if I get a chance to talk to anybody about racing. When in IMSA and Super Trofeo and all our races that we do, the thing I like about IMSA and sports car racing is because it's very inclusive, and this is the same treatment that I like would give people that are standing just outside our pit area that are like looking and trying to get an idea of what the car is. I try to include them, bring them in, answer questions for them because I remember when I was just in go-kart racing. I was 12 years old and going to race tracks with my dad, and the race car drivers that I have the biggest like heartfelt memory for were the ones that pulled me into what they were doing and answered questions and took the time to do it. So, it's hard for me. I always tell when I go in and do like play by play with some of the um, racing series that I've raced with, and I'm able to talk about racing. I'm not the guy that does the constant talking. That takes a whole level of talent. But to be able to answer questions and give different perspectives that educate people, I really enjoy doing that because that's what the opportunity that I got, and I like to bring new people into the sport and engage them and make them fans like I was, and I want that for a lot of the kids that are coming to the track, but I also for their families because the more they know about the racing, the more depth it has, the more experience level you have. So it's cool. So I'm glad you got a chance to experience some of that, Emu.
Thanks.
Well, that's why I even wanted to like when we started this was to like bring her in because I wanted her to because I would talk about it all the time, but I wanted her to be able to experience how cool it is, and now she has like drivers that she likes, so I feel like we're doing good.
Yay!
Yeah.
New fan.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. My stomach is growling.
Yeah, so let me wrap up the show.
Okay.
All right, so super fun. We're gonna have to do part 2 at some point. We're super grateful that you spent our time in our chaos because we're chaos. And yeah, Emu, I think we did good. Yep. Proud of us. We can high five about that later. For everyone watching next week, I think I'll be back with our Daytona predictions episode, and that should be interesting. It always is. Because my chat fight with each other and they tell me I'm wrong. So we're going to have to see. And it'll also be kicking off Emu and I's predictions race, which is always very contentious since we're 1-1 now.
I'll win.
No, you will not. So yeah, I'll be back next week, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye, guys.